Welcome, young, old, all in between, to Blue Abroad Show. It is the 18th of the 3rd, 2024. It is a new week with new hosts because Terry is doing what most chairmen of large corporations do, and he is living the high life, leaving it to his underlings. I'm Pom, one of the underlings, and joining me, the legend that is the most important part of a third. And that is Mr. Joe Adamo from the Almost Blues Brothers. How are you?
Good evening, mate, and good evening, everyone that's joining us. Most important, I reckon Dan would have something to say about that, to be honest. But thank you for the very gratuitous introduction there, Pom.
Mate, you're the Patrick Cripps of that group. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
used to be the star, but now
I'll take it.
Now you just raise them up to excellence.
Just the dirty work, get in and under, hardball gets, do all the shit during the week that no one really gives a shit about, and then, they just rock up and kick a couple of goals on Sunday night. Yeah, you're probably right, Pom, to be honest.
Mate, there you are. But we have got a big show today. Obviously, Carlton moving into the bye, which sounds weird at round 2. They have a week off. 2-0 after 2 scintillating, we're using that words, tight wins away to Brisbane and Richmond. Chat and Joe, vibe check, please. 2 games in.
Can't be any better, can it? No one would have predicted 2-0, I don't think. I think a lot of us had 1-1. Some even had 0-2 with the injuries. So vibe can't be any better, surely, Pommy, at this point.
Well, Joe, you've been around socials long enough now, mate. Carlton could win a flag, and they can't always be.
Yeah, that's true.
Davey, rating show has been pushed back to Wednesday. You have midweek, Pom and Joe, and Terry. I've already forgotten who my co-host is. But let's chat about it, chat. Give me a real big rundown, and Joe, take me through it. The Tigers recap. How did you feel like? What was it like for you?
Wasn't stressed at all, ever, which was weird. Don't think, even with 2 minutes to go, it wasn't the same feeling as the week prior against Brisbane, where it was really tense, and I just felt like we're always going to get it done, mate. Like, it just never looked like it was in any doubt once we kicked those first 2 or 3 of the last quarter. They say the cream rises to the top, and I think that's just what we are at the moment. We're just a better football side than Richmond, and that's what got us over the line. Wasn't our best football, wasn't our best game. We played some of our best football in patches, no doubt in my mind. But overall, I thought they stuck with us. I thought they gave us a good run. But when it came down to crunch, never any doubt that we were going to get over the line. Never any doubt. I don't know if you felt the same, but it wasn't the same feeling of tension that I've had in the past, like in the semi-final or the elimination final or last week against Brisbane. It was a more of a reserved stress level, if you want to call it that.
It was a 1-0 win away to Everton, wasn't it? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But no, I agree with you. I would say Terry usually asks for like 3 words, and I would say changing of the guard if it was 4 words, because it felt like that's how Richmond beat us for so many years. The fact that they made it ugly, they made it contested, they tried to slow us down, it became boring, stagnant, how you usually play, but eventually, like you say, we got over the line because we were a better side, which I'm pretty sure I've done a review 5 times of Richmond winning with the same token. So 4 points is 4 points.
It is. And we showed a Jack Silvani clip on our podcast last night around, I think he was on 3AW Football yesterday afternoon, and he was asked about what he thought about our performance against Richmond, and he described it as slow and pretty boring at times. So I don't know. For me, it was pretty scintillating at times. Like, that was some of the best ball movement I think this group has ever shown us. Slick, no hesitation off half-back. 9 goals from transition turnover is enormous for this group, because it's not something that's been a hallmark of our playing style in the past. And we did it to Brisbane the week prior, plus 36 in a quarter and a bit, and 9 of our 12 goals coming from turnover against Richmond. So that is scintillating football. And if Jack Silvani is describing that as slow and pretty boring at times, then it would amaze me to know what the standards inside the four walls are of what sexy football looks like, because it was bloody good at times, mate. It was bloody good.
I think that's interesting. You've touched on it there. We're obviously seeing two sides who have done their homework, and I don't want to talk about Collingwood because fuck Collingwood, but you've seen already in two games from Collingwood, sides know what's going to happen. They know what's going to happen. And watching Collingwood's game this week, there was a clear intent to make them go quick, early, not let them go through the gears. Opposition sides are saying, right, use your energy today. Use it now. We're going to go at you. Carlton, you've already seen Brisbane flooded the corridor and flooded around the contest, knowing that that's Carlton's one wood. Richmond, I watched this game back and I was like, every time Carlton lost against GWS is a great example last year. This is what they did to us. They said, right, good luck getting it out of the corridor. Let's see what you've got, boys. And we had no transition game. We had no turnover game. And ultimately, they kept us at arm's length. This game here showed me, if I was an opposition side, that clearance dominance isn't going to go away. But are you willing to rob Peter to pay Paul? Take a couple of big boys out of the centre and gap them around to try and get us on the overlap and on the intercept and let us have the clearance dominance? Or are you going to let us play football? I think we're one of the more improved sides, unbiased, with adding a layer to the game, which is very apparent. It's won us two games.
It's very clear that we've added that layer, and it's very clear that they've worked on it tirelessly over the preseason, because, like I said, it just wasn't a hallmark of our game at all. And now all of a sudden we're a transition side that got beaten in the clearances, but still managed to win the game. So Jules made a good point on our podcast last night, that being able to add this and having our stoppage work maybe lacking at this stage of the season, it's not a concern, because we know that we can always go back to that. We know we can find that gear. We've had that gear for 2 or 3 years now with our midfield unit. What we haven't had is that slick handball chain movement, quick off a turnover, no hesitation that we're seeing. And it's only going to get better. It really is only going to get better. This is only 2 games that we've seen from this group putting that together. Wait till we're halfway through the season, mate, and we get some continuity in some of these legs, continuity in game plan. We're going to be destroying sides by halfway through this year if we keep playing this way, destroying. And the intent, it's more so, there are times where the execution still is a little bit off, but it's more so the intent. And you can see that the intent is to move the ball quickly and blitz teams when we can. And it's phenomenal to watch. It is phenomenal to watch.
It's an interesting one there, Lou, talking about the past stats. We know that Carlton currently, as of Saturday's game, halfway through the final game, Carlton were third on their ranking from turnover differential. So I can't see it have changed on Sunday, because the teams that played us on Sunday were completely bobbins. So who cares?
There you
go. But it is worth noting that I do want to come on to our big success, and I'm going to give you the words of the greatest coach in the history of O Sport. And let's see what he says about what we're going to talk about next.
2 best words that ever used as a coach was well done. That's the only 2 words he's ever used in coaching. Well done. And at United, we never ever criticised a player in a training session, ever. It was always well done. That creates the habit of knowing that they're doing the right thing.
And a myth, a legend, talking about how it becomes habitual being told well done, because that's the praise you seek. Stolen from an actual child's education book, that children crave attention, so you dangle them the positive carrot and never the negative carrot, so they strive. But interesting, talking about Harry and talking about Voss, I noticed that Voss was very adamant about the reinforcement of, he was asked quite direct at the end of the game that it was ugly and scrappy, and he switched the question round to talk about we won, and how we'd lose them games last year, and we've worked really hard, and there was a bit of fatigue setting in because he knew that the season was going to be a bit shorter for Carlton. So he explained, usually they have a week before round 1. They've trained all that week, knowing they get the week off. Also with Harry, isn't it really, I thought this was a beautiful thing to link it to what Alex is saying. Carlton fans have got behind him. The club has got behind him. Nick Newman's come out and defended him. Charlie Curnow has. And I would say Harry would be close to top 3 best on both games. Easy. Isn't it amazing to see his turnaround just with a little bit of TLC?
Yep, it is. It is. And you say it all the time. Form's temporary, class is permanent. He went through a form slump. He had the yips. You could see it last year, especially halfway through the year. He was in his own head more than anything, I think. And the anxiety around it was written all over his face every time he stepped up to take a set shot in particular. But it's not there this year. That is full of confidence. There's not been one moment where Harry hasn't looked confident in his ability as a footballer, whether it be in front of goals, whether it be second efforts, repeat efforts. He laid 7 tackles against Richmond. It was a team high, equal team high with Cripper. And for a key forward, that's immense. His repeat efforts and his second efforts at the contest have been second to none to this point. And then obviously in front of goal, we see what he's doing. He's kicked 6 goals, 1 to start the season. You know, he got hammered again after the Brisbane game, as good as he was by Lloydie and Kane. You know, it's only 1 game, this and that. Well, now it's 2, but it's not just 2. This is now a career outside of maybe 3 or 4 months last year where he's proven that he is an elite key forward in this game. And it's good to see, mate. It's good to see. We need him up and about. We need him and Charlie to get some continuity between them now, because you see how dangerous that is and how hard that is for opposition teams to stop when they're both up and going.
It's a great thing, and Saz, absolute genius. I was just going to come on to this point. It's good to see you watch the rating show, Saz. But this is a big area for me that really annoys me about the AFL media, that even when he was poor goal-kicking wise last year, his contribution on field was still huge. It just lacked the goals. We've seen this year as well a massive shift. 14 Ks run game 1, 13.8 Ks run in game 2. These are midfield numbers. Like these aren't, I'm 200 centimeters, 90 kegs, a big gangly thing. These are midfield numbers. So it shows how hard he works for the team. And I thought that third quarter, there was something Harry did when Charlie started to get involved in the game. And it was this dummy leading. He did a massive dummy lead from the pocket, which took 2 defenders with him. And he made that run 3 times for some of the smaller blokes as well. Harry really has added this layer without the goals already, that if you go to Western Australia, they rave about Jack Darling being the auxiliary for their big key forwards. This guy has added something huge, and I think only we appreciate it, because I think Lloyd and Kane are just looking at the goal numbers. They're not looking, this is the best Harry. This is the best Harry. If he keeps this up, forget about the Coleman. This is world class.
It is. And I think he's probably polled about 4 or 5 Brownlow votes across these 2 games, to be fair. Like, I think he's best on against Brisbane. I think he'll get at least a vote against Richmond. But we've always known, as Carlton supporters, what he does up the ground. I found the commentary last year around Charlie needing to be the one that pushes up the ground astounding when the 2 of them were playing, because we always knew that Harry was the one that worked harder up the ground, that took the contested mark on the wing, that had a decent kick, field kick, and kick inside 50. And now we're seeing that again, but he's also, like you said, added back that layer of consistent goal kicking so far. So, I don't know, like, to be fair to Kane and Lloydie, they probably don't watch much footy outside of their own teams. So, you know, they're throwing shit at the wall and wait until it sticks. So it's just not going to happen, unfortunately, with H.
It's an interesting thing. I did watch the Geelong game this week, and I remember a good mate of mine does Geelong podcasting. He was telling me that, I think it was Kane Corns last year, it was the year they won, said that Cameron and Hawkins potentially the best forward combination to ever play the game.
Yep.
And I was watching them really carefully, and watching Harry and Charlie, you're starting to see that synergy. And I do think people forget it requires a relationship. You see in the midfielders at the moment, you can see there's not quite that synergy with TDK, even though he's dominating in hit-outs at times.
Yep.
They're not quite used to it. They're used to Pittonet's dribbly one, where TDK gives them a bit of pace. Watching these 2, you're starting to see they understand where they're running. You can see, right, you're there, I'm going to go here. And that will only get better the more games they play. Because I think people forget, 2 years ago, these guys were on the list for a decade and seen each other once.
Yep, that's true. And yeah, they haven't had the continuity together. They barely had it again last year when we thought it was going to be the first year that we saw him play 22, 23 games together. And Harry, he's out for 6 or 7 weeks across the year, whatever it was. So, and the year before he was injured for another 6 weeks. So they still haven't played, I think, more than 16 games together in a season. So hopefully this is the year that we see that on-field relationship start to blossom a little bit, and that understanding between them on leading patterns and whose time it is to go, and where each of them need to be for each other in order to thrive in this system. Because I think we've seen it for the first 2 weeks. They've had their patches separately, where Harry's the target and he capitalizes and he makes sure that he's the one that's hitting the scoreboard, and then all of a sudden Charlie pops up for 5 or 10 minutes, breaks the game open. So if we can do that each week, they're going to be very, very hard to stop for opposition defensive units. I can tell you that.
It's definitely going to be them ones to watch, because how did you feel, Joe, and how did you chat feel about this? It's a side that seems to be in development, and it seems to be in development sometimes for all the wrong reasons. We're seeing new midfield groups form. Currently, we've got a whole new backline almost, where a leader has to step up. The natural leaders aren't there. Is this something that kind of excites you, the fact that they're kind of learning this synergy as they go? It's really proving the next man up, because I think 2 years ago, if you remove the players out of this side that we're missing, we'd be at panic stations, wouldn't we?
We would. And I think it should give us all perspective on the life cycle of a football club in what you're talking about, Pom, with leadership and being able to stand up and next man up and whatnot. 2 or 3 years ago, all of these boys were 2 or 3 years younger. H was 22, Charlie was 22, Cripper was 26, Weeders was 23, Walshy was fucking 19. Like, at that point, how do you expect kids to be able to step up and play next man up? You can't. You need leaders, right? And now, if we get 1 or 2 that go down, we've got another 6 or 7 that can step up in that age bracket, in that experience bracket, whereas 2 or 3 years ago we didn't. And I think as Carlton supporters over the years, we've probably gotten ahead of ourselves in terms of where we actually truly believe the list is at times. And I think 2 or 3 years ago, if that's what we're comparing to, a lot of us thought we were ready. We weren't. In hindsight, we weren't. Doesn't matter what anyone told you, we were nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. Now we are. You've got guys like Newman. You got guys like McGovern. Even McGovern 2 or 3 years ago, he was no leader. Now you look at him and he's one of the leaders of the back line, You've got guys like even Adam Chera, like in the midfield unit. He's not a 28-year-old midfielder that's been around for 250 plus games, but he plays like it. He absolutely plays like it now, whereas 2 or 3 years ago probably didn't. Walshy, same. So we've got all of these, not plan Bs, but we've got all of these backup leaders that can step in and do what they need to do whenever we need them to do it, based on what personnel is available now, whereas we didn't have that 2 or 3 years ago. So I think this is what we're seeing. We're just seeing the natural progression of a football club and a football list that is maturing together. So it's exciting, mate. It's very, very exciting. This, watching, the thing is, Pom, and I'll stop in a minute because I've spoken for a while here, but the thing is, as Carlton supporters, we've had to sit and watch other teams, premiership teams and finals teams, do what they do for so many years. And we look at it and go, why can't we have a player like that? Why can't we have a system like that? Why can't we have a player like that? I now look at our team and I go, we've got that player. We've got that system. We've got that leadership. We've got that experience that I've seen in premiership sides in the past or final sides in the past. And we're literally just getting started, which is scary. Very, very scary.
Mate, I couldn't agree more. And we're talking about leaders in the back line. It's March. It's that time of year. It's that Ramadan time. And we've seen Basher Hooley. He became superhuman around this time. Adam Sard seems to become superhuman around this time, more so than normal. We've got a wonderful guest with us here who's going to explain to us all about the journey of Ramadan, to try and educate us as well. I'm going to try and not massacre this. I have been practicing this all day. A big shout out to my mate Tariq back in the UK. But I wish assalamu alaikum to
Alaikum salam. Amal, or Adam Saad. Either or is fine.
Well, I mean, obviously, most of the boys and girls will know you from the wonderful show, the Monday Blues. So there's a few of you on there, eh?
Yeah, there's a couple of Adam Sards there, except one of them has hair, which is weird. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I mean, tell us a little bit about Ramadan. So what is that celebration? What does it entail? And just talk us through. Imagine you're speaking to an English guy that anything other than a pear is exciting.
Yeah, so geez, Ramadan. It's the ninth month in the Islamic lunar calendar, right? So a bit about the lunar calendar. It kind of goes back 9 or 10 days or 11 days every year, right? So this particular month, it's the holiest month in the Islamic calendar by a long way. So it's the month where the Quran was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, and a bunch of other things have happened. That was obviously the biggest one, but that's obviously the biggest thing that's happened in that particular month. And what's expected of us, and what's been what we're obliged to do in the month of Ramadan is to fast, right? And we hold back from food and drink, and yes, that includes water as well. So from sunrise all the way through to sunset, no food, no drink, no medication, nothing like that, nothing at all, right? And that's the crux of it. That's the most important thing about it. And whilst a lot of people get stuck in that, it's not just about feeling hungry or thirsty or anything like that. It's about connecting with something that's bigger than ourselves, right? It's fasting itself in the month of Ramadan, and fasting in the month of Ramadan is actually one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It's one of the main things that we have to do as Muslims. And it's a way for us to show our love and devotion to Allah, and to practice self-discipline. The cool part about it is, it opens our hearts to empathy. One of the big things, when you go without food all day and you start, it sort of helps you to start to understand what it's like for people who struggle to put food on the table every day. And it's a reminder for us to be grateful for what we have and to help those in need. So it can be tough. It can be quite challenging, right? It's definitely by no means of the imagination is it a walk in the park. So you can imagine at the moment we're in daylight savings. So from, I think it's 5:45 in the morning at the moment, all the way through to in about 10 or 15 minutes time, we're fasting. We're not eating. We're not drinking. We're not doing anything. And our daily lives continue. So we're still working. We still have to take care of the kids and clean the house and do this and do that. Or everything continues. We're just going on without that food and water. It's a challenge, but it teaches us a thing or two about self-patience and self-control. And at the same time, it's also time for celebration and togetherness. So more times than not, we very rarely do you see a Muslim family have or open their fasts during iftar time by themselves. More times than not, we're with family and friends, and there's a real good time of connectivity and togetherness throughout the whole month. Now, how sad, there's all these spiritual benefits and practical benefits and everything like that, but it still seriously amazes me how Saad is able to produce what he does out on a footy field to the level that he does it. I mean, we saw what he did against Richmond, and keep in mind that this bloke has been fasting from 5:45 in the morning, and then he's come out, no food or water before the game or anything like that, no nutrients, no supplements, nothing like that, and has gone out and has been able to produce what I thought was a pretty special performance from Saad. He's obviously got the week off this week, but next week he'll be fasting throughout the game, so he will play that full 2-hour block without any food, without any water, and he will be breaking his fast after the game, which is seriously impressive stuff. How he manages, and how Bashar Hooli as well managed to get to a different level of performance is seriously impressive. I experienced a bit of it myself on the weekend when I was playing golf, but my putts weren't really that great. So I don't know. It sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't. But obviously for people like Saad and Hooli, they get massive benefits, especially out in the field, which is really impressive.
Now, we've heard throughout sports, I know Kyrie Irving mentioned this with himself and some of the other Muslim athletes he plays with. And I know Maido used to talk about it in EPL in the UK, that during Ramadan, because it's such a spiritual and such a focus on something greater than yourself, and you use them words, it allowed him to see that he used to say football was trivial to him. So he actually put it in perspective. So it was really easy to go out there and perform because he'd become connected with something greater than himself. Do you have any of them moments? I know my friend in the UK, Tariq, used to talk about everything was so focused on something else that it helped him relax and play sport without thinking about his teammates and thinking about all the other stupid stuff that gets in the way. He was focused on one thing, which helped him focus in the game. Do you have any feeling like more energy or more spiritual, or do you think that helps you in day to day?
Absolutely. I mean, personally, we're only 6 or 7 days into Ramadan this year, so it's still very early on. But from a spiritual perspective, I mean, I certainly feel a lot more connected and closer to my faith and religion. From a sports perspective, like I used to play tennis. I'm a massive golfer at the moment, and I played my first round of golf whilst fasting on the weekend, yes, I think you can certainly see how, like, if I was to put it in a golfer's way, right, you can get very caught up on a shank or like a duff chip or something like that, or a pushed putt or anything like that. But I still had those moments during my last round, but I still managed to shoot an 81, which isn't too bad. You sort of distance yourself from the things that you can quite easily get caught up in from the day-to-day lives, right? It removes you away from that, and again, like, you're connected to something bigger, right? You're focusing on something else other than what it is, and I feel like that can sometimes help you perform a little better. Moving away sort of from Ramadan, I find personally, like, when I'm speaking to someone on the golf course, if I'm playing with randoms or whoever it may be, that can help me take my mind off the actual performance in a golf round. And I feel like people like Saad and Kyrie Irving and Bashar Hooley and everything like that, because they're so focused on what is the most important thing for them in this particular month, right, in Ramadan, that they kind of maybe switch into autopilot mode when it comes to the footy, and muscle memory kicks in, and then what they do and what they produce, whilst to them might just be sort of going through the motions, but they're obviously able to produce something quite spectacular, quite impressive out in the footy field.
The big question here, and a lot of people have mentioned it, and it's incredible, this Amal. Like, I'm learning so much, and I have a better understanding of our fellow Carlton brothers and sisters who are going through Ramadan and celebrating it. What is the feast like? You mentioned there's the family atmosphere. You obviously break your fast. Is there a traditional dish that is traditional for Ramadan, like, a lot of other festivals, or what does that look like? The fast break comes, we get to eat. What's a traditional break of the fast, as it were?
It's recommended for Muslims. It's recommended that we open it, or that we break our fast with a date and a glass of water. So that you'll find that on every Muslim table come iftar time, and that's not too far away now as well. So I'm very excited to have 1 or 2 medjool dates and a glass of water. I tell you what. But then. My background is Afghan, so growing up in an Afghan household, most Afghan households we'll start after the date and a glass of water. We'll start with a bowl of soup, small bowl of soup, and then maybe some rice after that. It's funny, you kind of, in the lead up to iftar, it's very dangerous going to the grocery store whilst they're fasting, because you end up buying lollies and snacks and chips and chocolates and all of that, and then you have your small bowl of soup, you have your date, and you're full. You're full. It is seriously impressive how little the human body needs to function. That's something that is every year reset into my mind, because I'm an impulse eater. I'll admit that to everyone. But then come Ramadan, it's amazing. Like, just after a day or two, I've got the first couple of days, you immediately come to understand that, hey, I don't need like this much food to function on a daily basis. All I really need is this small amount that I have during iftar time, and I'm fine. And that's, I guess, that's where sort of the gratefulness and the gratitude of what we have in this beautiful country that is Australia. What we have, we have to be grateful for what we have, and we have to be. Sorry, I've seen a comment. We have to be grateful, and also we have to be conscious of those in who are less fortunate than us, and help them where we possibly can.
Some questions coming through. Is fasting for everyone, women and children as well?
Women, yes. Children, no. So once you hit the age of puberty, that's when it becomes obligatory. But then, there's rules and all that kind of stuff behind it. I mean, we could sit here for hours and talk about who can and can't fast and everything like that. So if there's a medical condition behind your reasoning for not to fast, then that's absolutely fine. But for most people, those that are able-bodied and in good health, absolutely, it's required. It's obligatory.
That must be so hard. I'm currently watching what I eat to lose some weight, and watching my kids like chow down chips makes me hate my children. So I could not imagine doing this as an adult and my kids being immune to doing it and just watching it, because my children are horrible. They would definitely eat 24 hours a day to tease me.
It was tough for me as a kid. It's only gotten easier over the last couple of days, over the last couple of years more so. But funnily enough, it's actually going to get harder and harder over the next couple of years, because now we're slipping out. So the lunar calendar, as I said, it goes back 10 years 10 or 11 days every year. So, we've got 3 or 4 days toward the end of Ramadan where we come out of daylight savings, and then we start to break our fast around 6 o'clock. But for the next, I think, 15 years, we'll be fasting in daylight savings. So for the next 4 or 5 years, those days are going to get longer and longer and longer. We'll reach a point where Muslims in Australia will be breaking their fast around 9:30 when the sun sets.
Oh, that's insane. This is the bit that gets me, the no water. How do you, like, obviously your background's Afghanistan, so it's obviously you're used to the heat. I'm from the north of England, where if it gets double digits, we faint. How do you survive in this heat, like without water? Is that something that you like prepare for, or is that just sheer will and determination?
Yeah. So before Fajr, which is the morning prayer, before the sun goes up, we'll wake up, we'll grab a bite to eat, and we'll try and drink as much water as possible. Personally, this year, I've been having a lot of electrolytes because I like to spend some time on the golf course where I can, so I need to be hydrated. Golf sounds easy, but you end up doing 10 or 11 kilometers of walking over a 4-hour period, so it can be tough. So electrolytes, I find it helping, but coffee is the tough one, not water. Coffee is the one that gets me hard. I love a strong coffee in the morning, and sort of not being able to drink that, as I'm starting my work day or anything like that is difficult. It took me the first day, I had the worst headache of my life. Thankfully, my body's adjusted now. It's kind of the need for coffee in the morning has been weaned out over the last week. But coffee's the tough one, not water.
Amal, thank you so much for coming on. I'll let you go back because obviously you're getting near the point where you can finally eat and enjoy that coffee. So
I can't wait. And look, my eyes are getting blurry as well, and you guys are starting to look like medjool dates. So I should probably go.
But thank you so much for sharing your story. I've got a lot out of it. The chat seemed to enjoy it, and just give us a little plug. Where can we find you and your mates?
Yeah. So we run a blues podcast called The Monday Blues. We're on YouTube. We're on TikTok. You'll find us on Instagram at The Monday Blues Podcast. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers, so thanks to Terry and the Blue Board channel who helped us get there as well. He shouted us out on Thursday night just after the fan came, so really appreciate that. Jump on, have a look at our content. Make sure you listen on to our latest podcast, which was the Carlton versus the Tigers review, which just came out at 5 p.m. today.
I've just put the link in the chat, so if you can all go over there, say Pommy says hi, so I know you've done it as well, you little cheeky gits. So, well, thank you very much. We can't wait to check it out, and much love, mate. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. See ya.
Cheers.
Well, I feel like, it's not often I learn something on this channel, right? Not saying that I know everything, but you know what? I actually feel a little bit more informed there. That was amazing stuff.
Yeah, I grew up with a lot of Muslim friends, but there were a few things in there that I didn't know, which it is a very, very disciplined time for their people, and hats off to them. I couldn't do it. There was a comment here actually.
Oh, was that about you putting weight on?
Yeah, from Davey. He was in the chat last night in our show about me looking a bit porky. I'm not looking porky. I'm hitting the gym, so it's a little bit different. But I appreciate
Davey,
it.
look, he's shifted it. He's getting hench, bruv. He's getting hench.
Hats off to him. It's It is. It would be a very, very, very tough time to keep your head in this period, I think. And yeah, how the likes of Assad or Kyrie Irving or Basher Hooley or whoever at an elite sporting level are able to do it, I've got no idea. No idea. I can't function if I don't eat at 9 a.m. Like it's just has to happen, you know?
You know what? I reckon I could fast all day, but I couldn't do what he did, play golf without snacking.
Yeah,
I'm
no
a
way.
massive,
No way.
I'm a massive golf snacker. Someone's going to clip this and it's going to ruin my career, but I do like some nuts when I'm playing golf. So have fun with that. No context blue abroad. There you are. But from Adam Sard, that's definitely backfired. I can't wait. We're going to go with the troops are arriving. Obviously, one of the big things no one's thinking about is Carlton at the moment are probably playing their reses. Let's be honest. It's Manchester United in the Carabao Cup in the mid-noughties. But there is some big names to come back. And I thought this would be a fun exercise because this show is all about big games and big names. You've got two of the biggest in me and Joe. But this here, you're about to see the side from our best performance to date, the Melbourne game, to what Vossi put out last week. So you can see they're just names because we're all about simplifying it. I simplified it. That's basically what the team selection would look like if we played the Melbourne final and played this week. And you can see some big names missing. Sam Doherty, Jacob Wheaterin, Chin Cotter, huge name is Pom Cotter, and no one in the chat tell me he's not. Sam Walsh, Jesse Motlop, and Caleb Marchbank. And you can see some of the ins are fairly tasty. Lewis Young, massive in. Zach Williams, Lazio Fantasia. Mackay is probably the biggest in that's there. Carroll, Boyd, and Durden, who, no disrespect to them, I would say you would take the outs over the ins, with maybe the exception of Harry Mackay and Zach Williams. You'd probably, that is. And that mirrors up. If you actually look to your left, I've gone away and been a secret nerd, and you can actually see that means it's 21.1% down on its expected output. And how that algorithm does that is it takes these players against the matchups and then players against the same matchups and allocates points, effectively rating forward lines in the competition. It is saying Carlton's backline against Richmond was 21.1% worse than the side that played Melbourne. The midfield, quite interesting, 11.2% down. Forward line, because of Harry, it's only the small forwards that affect it. But if that side played Richmond, it would expect around a 20.5 point swing. So it just shows you that we are missing some pretty sexy players.
We are. I mean, yeah, you'd take Doc, you'd take Weeders, you'd take Chin Cotter, you'd take Walsh, you'd take Motts, you'd take Marchie. Like you said, probably Williams, Mackay, maybe Boyd, considering he played in the prelim in those ins. Probably the three I'd take. Outside of that, over those other six, probably not. So troops are arriving, and the early buy has come at the absolute best time for this football club. And I think, again, we sort of discussed this on our show last night. If we didn't have this buy, and I'll probably pose this question to you, Pom, if we didn't have this buy, do you think the likes of a Wiedering and a Marchbank, for instance, would have played against Richmond? Do you think that this buy, where it's placed, has allowed us to be a little bit more conservative in the approach of bringing these players back, maybe slightly too early, underdone by 5% or whatever it may be?
We said this on the team show. I felt the 4 points against Brisbane, which, let's be honest, when the bookies have you $3.50, it's basically telling you, I mean, you've got the same chance as Elvis doing the halftime show. Do you know what I mean? When it's in spot, that's a big thing. I genuinely said that Richmond was a free hit. So Don't play them. Don't risk them. Like, don't risk them in a game that, worst case scenario, if you beat Brisbane, logic should be a win anyway with good structure. So I personally won. I'm sure some people might have brought them in, but I have tried to approach this season thinking players don't play until they're fit. Let's not take risks, because I think you look at it last year, Martin's not in that. If you remember, Martin played too many games. He got hurt in before the Melbourne game. I don't want stuff like that to happen. I want, from round 14, I don't want to see any ins and outs in an ideal world. I want to see that's our team. You've got to get into it now. It's just fitness based. So me personally, I wouldn't do, because, I mean, I'm still of the school next week North. After the bye, if Walsh, Martin, Marchbank, they aren't 100% fit, VFL them for 30 minutes. We used to play Chris Judd in a VFL game.
We did.
And they're no Chris Judd.
No, they're not. Walsh is one that I just don't want to see until like round 10. I couldn't care less, to be honest. Like, make sure he's good. That back injury is not something to play with. The rest of them, yeah, I agree. We will see them at some point in the near future, whether it be against North or the week after against, I believe it's Freo in Perth. But yeah, this early bye has afforded us a little bit of an advantage, I think, over the rest of the comp, which hasn't been spoken about enough. But I'm sure if we win the flag, there'll be some mainstream commentary around it as to whether or not it was unfair having 2 byes across the season.
Well, I mean, you've got to remember that North get battered everywhere they go. They're the Tottenham of the AFL, aren't they? Just without a likeable coach.
They are. That's true. That's true.
Well, we go on. We talked about VFL. VFL recap.
Take it away.
I do want to caveat this as well, that the AFL might be the worst league in the world. That the VFL, why have we got a bye when we're playing? It makes no sense. I don't get it. So obviously all the games everyone's complaining about, they're pre-season games. Now, I did attain, a good friend of mine works for Coburg. He did write me a match report about that. Obviously last week as well was a practice game. So again, it wasn't a game played for points. It wasn't a serious game, but there was some takeouts there. Players did play, which is very important. We got some minutes into Ashton, who didn't play, but he did play very well against Coburg. This is an interesting one, though, isn't it? Because I think this year, the VFL, this is probably the most important year, I would say potentially ever, for our VFL. Because all being said and well, we've seen what happened with Carroll. This is the opportunity now for someone to make a huge career for themselves, isn't it?
Yep, it is. It sure is. Got, likes of Ed Curnow, Ben Crocker, Zach Fisher, Paddy Dow leaving the club, which were VFL stalwarts last year. No disrespect, but they just were. So there's 4 spots instantly that open up for someone to take it by the balls and run with it. So, yeah, I'm with you on that.
And it was very interesting. So we did pick up there that we obviously lost. There's no getting away from it. Against Richmond, we lost. Richmond did get over on the top of us as well. It was live on TV. I don't know if anyone got to watch it, but one of the big takeouts for there was very similar to the report that I got from a mate up at Coburg. And he said that Carlton were trying not to get hurt. And he did specify that to me, that your AFL players are very good, but it looked like that they weren't trying to get hurt, which he understood, which I think needs to be put in. But the Blues went down 97-43. The second term, it was a little bit like the seniors. The Blues came out of nowhere and looked incredibly good. The first was a little bit tough. But this was a real interesting game, I thought. Apart from O'Keefe, it really looked like this was a very reservy side, and it was a very young side. Monaghan got the most minutes. The boys were quite quiet. So I do want people to look at the VFL team and just put it in perspective. This is pre-season. We didn't get upset with our seniors in their pre-season. VFL, they were definitely just going through the motions.
Yeah, look, I'm expecting our VFL side will get battered every now and then this year, depending on personnel available for seniors, because we will be stretched for depth if our senior list isn't fit and healthy, unfortunately. So I know the VFL is usually a good indicator of how well your football club's going across the board. How much we read into it this year, I'm not sure yet. I think it's just going to be a little bit of a different look, I think, for those boys. with the outs from last year and what has potentially come in. So could be a year of just finding their feet a little bit. Might be a bit of a down year, but I don't think it'll take away from the momentum of our senior side.
I've got to say, the passages of play that my mate sent me from Coburg and watching the Richmond game, our mate Davey, old Robbie Monaghan, he was incredibly impressed. My mate, who's the coach at Coburg, was incredibly impressed because he actually worked with Mullin and said that he can see that the skill set in the terms of these guys. Like his exact words to me were, "He's got all the foot candy in the world. 6 weeks written on him though every time he tackles."
Right.
But he's got that hunger. And one thing that I did notice, Billy Wilson spent a lot of time in the middle versus Richmond. These boys are genuinely getting the opportunity, and I do think they're in a wonderful position that there isn't any clingers on, and I mean that in the nicest point of the way. Paddy Dow, Ed Kerno, there isn't the hangers on anymore. All these boys really who are AFL listed are fighting for jobs.
Yep, and they'll have their, like we said, they'll have their opportunity all year, I believe, to be able to take it by the balls because those guys aren't there ahead of them. Someone needs to become the number one in the midfield again. Someone needs to become number one up forward without Ben Crocker there. Like it's all there for him to take. I think it's going to take time, and I think there's going to be some real teething issues, especially early on. But like I said, it's all part of the process, right? Like this is unfortunately just where our VFL program might be at.
It was very interesting as well. Watching the wings, they were doubling back. So I'm very looking forward to seeing Jackson Binns do that role because that's something that impressed me last year. Defensive craft held him back in the draft, but his offensive work was insane.
He's one where you go, that it's your time now. Like you need to become a top 3 VFL footballer for us week in, week out. You need to be impacting the game every single week in whatever position. I know that he had a good year last year, but you know, Harry Lemmy, there's another one. Paul Hill in the comments. That's got to be yours now. You've got to take the number one mantle. You've got to start kicking 3-4 goals a week as a key forward for our VFL side. This is where these boys are at in their development. It's exciting. It's exciting because if they can take it, it's going to be really good to watch, and it's just going to help our development, you know, advance in an exponential manner. But we've got to see it. We really have to see it.
It was impressive, and seeing a few of the players being rotated heavily, I really did enjoy watching. Hudson O'Keefe as well had I thought, a very solid game, and he's one I've got a keen eye on because they're playing him forward and then rucking and looking like Carlton are swinging to that position of to be the second ruck, you have to do something.
Yeah, got impact. Yep.
And it looks like TDK has locked down the first. Very interested to see what that looks like when Pitternet's in there.
For sure. Hey, Pitto will be, whether it's Pitto or TDK on any given week, but there's a little boost to the VFL as well. So hopefully out of the middle, we're all right. And
tell you what, Joe went away. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Joe went away and made us this to talk about this bit. Mr. Fev. You know what? What that reminds me of watching them footage, and I was actually saying this to my son. I'd love to know what you think, Joe, and chat. When I was a kid, there was a lot of council estate working class heroes, and you could tell with Feb's mental hairstyles. Do you know what I mean? It's what happens when you give someone with not much a bit of money. They go crazy. We've really lost that in today's sport, haven't we? The working class hero, the guy that, you know, if he wasn't a footballer, would be working with your uncle doing concreting. We've lost that. Everyone's too manufactured. Bring back working class heroes.
There's a couple of them floating around, but not as many as what we used to have. No, not as many cult heroes as what would float around. But I put that together today for the Instagram. If there's 187 of you here, if you haven't already, Almost Blues Brothers on Instagram. We're approaching 5,000. So if you can and you haven't, go follow us. But yeah, that's why it was in the real format, not a full wide picture. So I do apologize for that. But mate, going through some of the footage, this afternoon was just he was a superstar. I was 14 when he left, 14 or 15. So my whole childhood was going to the footy to watch Fev. It wasn't to watch Carlton win because we just weren't. and that was never going to happen. We weren't a winning side. There was one reason I'd go to the footy as a kid. There was one reason I was still invested in this football club, and that was because of that bloke right there. And some of my absolute favourite memories at the football, thanks to Brendan Favola. So gets his rightful place in the Hall of Fame tonight, in the Carlton Hall of Fame, and he's a legend, mate. He's an absolute fucking legend of this football club.
He is, and before my time. Do you know what I mean? You see,
yeah, you missed out on him, and mate, I tell you, he was as entertaining a footballer as I've still ever seen. Like you, Charlie is probably as close as it's ever been to the feeling I got watching a key forward like Fev in the Navy Blue. Like he would do things that a bloke of his size just should not have been able to do. He was phenomenal, mate. He was phenomenal.
Mate, the Fev, he joins the Hall of Fame. And what is it? The 80th member of Carlton. Was it 82nd?
I think he's the 80. I think there's been 82. So he's going to be...
That's it. 83rd.
Within 83, 4 and 5 or whatever it is tonight. Yeah.
Which is mental when you think how many people have played at Carlton to get there. But
1,200 players have played... Over 1,200 players have played for this football club. Only 85 after tonight stand in our Hall of Fame, and he's one of them, and rightfully so. He is one of the best to ever do it for our football club.
Mate, do you know what I mean? I admire a man who can get absolutely obliterated at a function. Do you know what I mean? Reminds me of my golf career, because that is what Pom does. But well done to you, Fev. We move on. Looking ahead, we've got a very, very important game this week versus the bye. It's probably the first time Carlton have had a bye where there's not going to be a meme made about us that we're going to lose to it. But the week after, we have the Kangaroos. So, chat, right? Firstly, there's two parts of this. One, Voss has really nailed into us. The players have been overworked, right? And I do want to do this. If you have gone on social media or you have gone anywhere in the last 4 weeks and complained about S&C, would you say it's fair to say that Carlton have won the last 2 games because they're fitter than the opposition? So all I want in the chat is S&C. Just S&C. Give them some love. S&C and a smiley face. Give them some love. Because I'll tell you what, fair play to them. But what are we expecting against North? Let's get to it. I've already seen some people talk about percentage. Are we going into this game? Are we at that stage where we're thinking, let's batter North?
It would be nice. It would be nice. But they are an AFL quality football side, like the other 17 teams that will come up against throughout the year. I thought we were going to batter Richmond, and we didn't. We just got over the line. We are a much better football side than Richmond this year. We are a much better football side than North Melbourne this year, but that doesn't guarantee you that you're going to win by 40 plus. What we need to do is win this game. And that's all I am going into each week with this year. I've learned from the past. I've learned from 2023. Nothing is guaranteed. You have to work hard to get back to where we got to last year. Nothing will be given to this group. They need to go out and win this game of football and put their best foot forward. The other thing that I'm going to be doing this year, Pom, is, and I've made a promise to myself, I am not going to get into the negative. It's not going to happen. I'm not doing it. I refuse. We've now got a team that for the next probably 3 or 4 years are capable to contend. And then after that, it's back to not potentially rebuilding completely, but it's back to going back to the drawing board, trying to redevelop a few players, bring in new players. And this golden era that we're living in cannot be taken for granted, because it's only going to last us 3 or 4 years, and I'm going to fucking enjoy every minute of it every week, regardless of little moments or minutes here and there that we don't. It's not going to happen. I have Mediterranean blood. Yeah, that's true, but it's not going to happen. I'm telling you. We as supporters, whether it's North Melbourne, whether it's Collingwood, whether it's GWS, we need to enjoy this for what it is, because we're seeing something special for the first time. And I didn't fucking suffer for 15 years watching this team get battered every single week against 16 men against GWS in the final quarter to get to this point and be negative. It just doesn't make sense, Pom. It doesn't make sense.
Mate, Davey is one of my favourites in chat. I think it's the opposite way, Davey. You're meant to be a psychopath, mate. You don't have to see any happy roids users, mate. Trust me. But no, Joe, can someone just explain to me? Just imagine my accent isn't the same as yours, and I come from a different country. But I have never seen anyone in England ever say goal difference. Like, the mentality is always, yeah, goal difference separates first from second, but if we win more games than second, fuck, who cares? Yep. For me, winning is more important. I reckon and this is my argument, I don't think our game style is ever going to be plus 50, plus 60, plus 70. I think our game is we outwork the opposition. I think, and if you break it down, as much as I love our players, the facts are there's skill gaps between, if you want to play GWS's way, they're all good users of the football. If you want to play like Richmond, they've all got facets. You can't do it. You couldn't ask Carlton to play for Whitby Town and get them to the Premier League. There's skill gaps, skill deficiencies. So I'm looking at, let's just win 4 points. And I think eventually you'll have what happened with us, where we'll just break a team down and they'll implode. But for me, I'm looking for 18 wins. Do you know what I mean? If you do that, 18 wins, your percentage, it could be negative 20. You're in the top 4.
It's true. I mean, it's not going to be negative 20 if you win 18 games. But
well, yes, but do you know what I mean? I'm just giving an example.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. Yeah, and I think we're just going to build into the season. We saw it at the back end of last year, how important it was to hit your straps at the right time. So right now, this isn't the time to judge this team. I hope we can all learn from last year about not judging this team until late in the season, if not at the end of the season. There's going to be speed bumps. We're going to hit little roadblocks along the way. Let's not catastrophize if we don't beat North by 50 and we only beat them by 12 and we could have improved. As long as we win, it doesn't matter. That's another 4 points banked, and it's another 4 points on our way to a top 4 finish. Pretty simple.
You know what? I'm not going to bully him with the public forum that I've got, but a good mate of mine guaranteed me, and he has paid the bet, but guaranteed me we would start 0-2. And this week had the audacity to text me, if we don't beat these idiots by 50, we're not a real football club. So I just screenshotted him to 0-2.
Yeah, exactly right. I just don't buy into that shit anymore. I just don't. I don't. Collingwood won a flag not battering teams. Like, if we're going to learn from history, recent history, surely we're all smart enough here and we've all got the IQ to look at it and go, you know what? Yeah, let's just pump the brakes a bit. We haven't proven anything yet. We need to prove it week in, week out, and that's by winning games, and that is it.
And real talk, you nail it, mate. That's how I believe our team works. Eventually, we will play a team where we'll just systematically break them down. But
agree.
I honestly, trust me, someone took the piss and saying Pom goes 10 minutes without talking about football. Can Pom go 20 minutes without talking about golf? I can't. But I remember my granddad telling me, I played this guy under 16s. He was an absolute spud. Honestly, I could have got my willy out and beaten him. Right? And my granddad said to me, always be careful, mate, when you think you cock of the walk, because round the corner, he might know a fox. And you know what? I lost because I went out, I chased a girl the night before, didn't get home till 6 a.m. You know, if you go in with that mindset of we're going to win by 100, that is when you lose.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? If you go in, and Arsenal, your team, they went in against Everton last year expecting to batter them, and Everton showed them up. So I always think,
and I tell you,
mindset, just win.
Arsenal's a great example because we have had last season and even the season prior when we're trying to go for a Champions League spot, but last year in particular, we bottled that title across a 3-week period where we thought we can bank 9 points here against Crystal Palace and Brighton and whoever else it was, I can't remember. And we didn't, and we dropped points. And this year Arsenal are coming out against dog shit teams, not with the mentality that, we'll just get over the line through sheer talent. No, they're coming out every single week and they're outworking every single team. And if you outwork every single team, the teams that are just simply not as good as you will get battered. But if you don't come in prepared to do the work, then we're going to have another nail biter. And I've got no doubt that this team, that our team, our football club, the Carlton Football Club, as it stands, they will find their rhythm in being able to outwork teams, because we're not a sexy football club. We're not going to play sexy football all the time. It's going to be brutal football, and we will find ways to break teams down eventually. May not come against North, but let's not go to fucking panic stations if it's another 1 point win. That's all I'm saying.
Spoken like a genius there. I agree with you, Joe. Let's not panic. But chat, that is the end. That is an hour. It flies by. Thank you very much to Joe. If you are, though, thank you very much to Emil as well, who came on, taught us loads. I remember this is a real big religious time of year. We've got Lent if you are a Christian. You've got Estrata, which is in 2 days' time. Do you know what I mean? So shout out to everyone back home who will be celebrating that. And you've got Ramadan. But remember, we are all Blues brothers and sisters. So if you want to come on the show and explain a celebration, we'd love to do it, because remember, we are all united. The minute we stop being united is the minute we're divided. Joe, tell me, what have you got on this week? If I wanted to find the Almost Blues Brothers, where would I find you?
Yeah, you can go to the Instagram at Almost Blues Brothers, the Twitter at Almost Blues Bros, if you haven't followed us on either of those platforms, and you will see us again for episode 119 Sunday night. There's a bye for the Blues, not a bye for us. Sunday night, 7 p.m, episode 119, back in the studio. If you haven't checked out our episode from last night, episode 118, either on the Blue Broad YouTube channel, or you can hit up the Almost Blues Brothers Spotify or Apple podcasts. Pom, yourself, what have you got?
9 o'clock in an hour's time, I am live for Pommy Ponders, so we're going to cover all of the week's games. I've got the wonderful Joe Chabby joining me from Centre Bounce. He is a bomber, but he's a nice one at that. Stay tuned. Wednesday, Pom in Oz. No team show this week, so I've roped in Let Dog to do a very special game. You will be picking a joint team from the last elimination final Richmond game and Carlton's game versus Brisbane, but it's blind and it's just going to be numbers on the screen. So, chat, you will be picking a team without seeing the player. We will just throw numbers to see who we get. And then, obviously, I'm just making content up for the rest of the week. It's a bye. So, stay tuned. There'll be something made up. Do you know what I mean? But, chat, God bless, peace, love, and light, and we'll see you next time.